Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's lecture. It is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, and today's date is the 29th of April, Wednesday, 2026. The time is 1:22 p.m., and I am in Miami-Dade County, Florida. The topic of today's lecture is defection, its political consequences. And ladies and gentlemen, I tend to do these lectures outdoors, and I may raise or project my voice from time to time in order to drown out the background noise. Please adjust your volumes accordingly, and thank you for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the main talking points, I would like to address a separate matter. Very briefly, ladies and gentlemen and ladies. That separate matter that I would like to address is this. I'd like to address my stalkers directly. You all aren't acting as bold over the past couple of days as you usually do. Why is that? Is it because you realize that your entire enterprise is foolish, criminally negligent, and was doomed to fail from the start? Is it because one of your test subjects, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, has taken to the internet in a mighty and powerful way to expose your program and its defects like something you never imagined? Is it because people are speaking out about this deleterious product called gang stalking, this national security debacle, this signaling mechanism that puts U.S. citizens against each other in a very hostile way, is essentially been made bare? I mean, you gang stalkers, you've laid yourselves wide open. You've become arrogant in your operation, and hubris is your downfall. You thought to yourself, look at this magnificent signaling mechanism, this magnificent attack protocol, this magnificent infiltration network that we have. It's nationwide and international. We've effectively seized control of American society through this mechanism. And we've also seized control of the societies of other countries as well with this very mechanism. Not only have we managed to grab society by the throat and steer it in the way that we want it to go, but we've managed to become our own gods as well. To all my Bible people, remember the story of the Tower of Babel. What happened in that story in the book of Genesis to the whole world when it thought that it could become its own God? When it thought that it could write its own story? When it thought that it could become its own master? When it thought that it could assign authority based on trivial matters and trivial factors, trivial events and trivial circumstances? When humanity thought that it had the ability, the capacity, and the power to usurp its own throne in the interest of a few and at the expense of the whole world. It built a tower and continued building a tower that was supposed to reach into outer space. So human beings that lived more than 4,000 years ago would be able to pierce the sky with this creation, look into the heavens, and observe God himself. You see, they wanted to observe the face of God without first offering him their love, their obedience, their homage, and the acknowledgement that he is the creator of all things. Humankind wanted to believe it was its own creator, and it set out into the heavens to mock God right to his face. See what your creation has done, Heavenly Father. See what thy creation has done, O Yahweh. We have built a tower with our own hands and without your help that has reached into the heavens, and we are now able to look at your face and see who our creator is, whether you like it or not, O Heavenly Father. These people thought that they could become their own masters, and not just their own masters, but they thought, particularly the architects of the Tower of Babel, thought they could be the masters of other people. They thought they could be the masters of humanity. They thought that they could grip the human race by the very hairs on their heads and tell them what it will be and what it won't be. But ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, the Spirit of God descended from the clouds, saw the tomfoolery in action, and confounded the speech of the builders, so that they could no longer understand one another, and they had to abandon the project in its entirety. The story of the Tower of Babel in the biblical book of Genesis teaches the reader through a striking, poetic, and stunning narrative that rings true even to the present day, ladies and gentlemen. Humanity has to look to greater things for meaning and purpose. You cannot look to yourself. You did not create yourself. And if you don't believe in creation, that's okay. There are a lot of people that don't. There are a lot of people that believe in other mechanisms for how the earth came into being, for how the universe came into being, to how humans came into being. Some people believe in the existence of a material soul, some don't. Whatever your belief system is, that's between you and the gods, or you and the God you serve, or between you and nature. But ultimately, I think it can be agreed upon, ladies and gentlemen, that human beings did not create the universe, nor did human beings create each other. At the very least, you were brought into this world by a reproductive mechanism that your parents shared. Who were the first human parents that used this reproductive mechanism to procreate? And who created those very first human ancestors that were so perfect in their structure and deeds? It's a difficult thing to know, ladies and gentlemen. Human beings are 2 million years old. And who's to say there aren't other galaxies and universes out there that have other planets with similar beings living thereon? But ladies and gentlemen, I digress. Ultimately, the Tower of Babel teaches us something very, very, very important, and that is no matter how sophisticated or advanced humans become, you simply don't know the genesis of your creation. You can rely on science, which offers theories. You can rely on Bibles or other holy books, which offer theological insights. You can rely on mythology, which offers theological insights. But ultimately, human beings were not around the modern day human beings can't look back into the past 2 million years and tell you exactly how and why people got here. But now that people are here, I think it's wise to acknowledge your frailty, your innate frailty, and the reality that you simply did not create yourself. Even if you believe in even if you believe in evolution, which is a scientific method, that would mean that the universe or nature created you. If you believe in theological things, that means you believe that a deity created you. So whether or not you believe in a God, you have to acknowledge that something greater than yourself created you, whether it was nature or whether it was a God. Something greater than yourself created you. So it's hubris for human beings who are of a finite nature and who know practically nothing in the grand scheme of things to try and become the masters of other people. Do not try to become the master of another person or another race or another gender or another type of living thing, because quite frankly, you don't know where that person or that human being is headed in the afterlife, nor do you have any knowledge of the afterlife yourself. So it's silly and indeed stupid for human beings, for humankind, to attempt to use social systems like gang stalking to control other people, to manipulate other people, to decide the destiny and the fate of other people. You were brought into this world using the same mechanisms that person was brought into this world. You will likely leave this world, barring the rapture that's talked about in the book of Revelations, in the same way that the next person leaves this world. You are nobody and nobody at all, stalkers. To condemn another person, to control another person, to manipulate, disrupt, harm, harass, or make sick another person. The Bible scriptures have taught you that, for those of you stalkers that are Christians. There are other religious holy books like the Quran, like the Rig Veda, like the Torah, like Buddhist manuscripts, and even mythology from the ancient times teach you that hubris comes before the fall. Your pride leads to your demise. The same is true with gang stalking. You stalkers were very, very confident in yourself, so confident in yourself indeed that you decided to try to pass yourselves off as superiors to your targets and the masters of society, but you have been laid wayside by one of your test subjects. And that's an embarrassment that will never leave you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into the main talking points for today. Thank you for listening. We're talking about political dissidence, ladies and gentlemen. Political dissidence is a very important topic. And the reason political dissidence is an important topic, ladies and gentlemen, is because it focuses on the rights of the individual. Okay, when you talk about rights, particularly inalienable rights, which are the rights that are afforded to you by God or nature, those rights that no man, woman, child, company, or government can ever legally or lawfully infringe upon, You're talking about the right to move about freely. If you're a United States citizen and you live in a particular city or state, you have the sovereign right as a living, breathing organism to move to another city or state if you so choose. The same is true if you are a disaffected U.S. citizen and you decide to move to another country. Okay, if you do decide to move to another country, you are free to move to any country in the world that will accommodate you, that will accept you, that will approve your application for citizenship. It's a lengthy process, ladies and gentlemen, and moving to another country it's an expensive process, ladies and gentlemen. And then when you get to the new country, you have to find a way to sustain yourself financially. There's a lot to it, ladies and gentlemen. Quite frankly, the best course of action for any person, man, woman, or child that lives in any country in the world is to simply prosper in the country of your birth. Period. It's a lot easier and a much smoother and seamless process to enjoying a stable and decent trajectory, a stable and decent life's trajectory through this world, if you just find happiness in your country of origin. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're talking about defection, okay, when you become so disaffected with your host country, with your home country, with your country of origin, that you say, I don't even want to be here anymore at all, okay, you are effectively preparing to divorce your country. Okay, I mean, it's sort of a sociological divorce, or what you might refer to as a political divorce. Okay, your legal bonds as a citizen to a country are about to be removed from you. And rather than being a citizen of country A, you are going to move and you are going to become a citizen of country B. It is a governmental, political, and sociological divorce, because you're not just divorcing yourself from your government, you're divorcing yourself from the American people too. You will no longer have USA citizen or American indexed to your vital statistics. You're going to move to a new country. You'll have a new national identity number. You'll be a citizen of a new sociological construct, and you'll be a member of an entirely different people altogether. And there are some Americans who, for various reasons, do that. It's not always political. Sometimes it's political. Sometimes the reasons are social. All right. Sometimes the reasons are personal. Okay. There are a lot of reasons that a person defects to another country. All right. We saw a trend in the early to mid 2000s, and then again in the 2010s, where American citizens would move to another country if they disliked whoever the president was that got elected. All right, there were instances where when George W. Bush got elected, when Barack Obama got elected, when Donald Trump got elected, when Joe Biden got elected, when Donald Trump got elected again, you had people so disaffected by who the president was that they literally packed up their things, purchased a passport, applied for citizenship in another country. They were granted entry into that country. They moved to another country, obtained residence in that country, got a job in that country, and they are living happily in that country right now in the present. It's a big endeavor. It's a huge endeavor. A lot of people find moving to a new house or apartment is a nightmare. Imagine packing up everything you own or selling everything you own and moving to a whole new country. It's quite an affair. And you have to apply for citizenship, and the host country has to accept your application. Okay, there are people who apply for citizenships in other countries and get denied for this reason or that. You know, when it comes to a political dissident like myself, you never know who will accept you and who will not. And if you're asking me, well, Smith, have you considered defecting? Yes, I consider it every day. And apparently a person might say, well, why? Why does a person defect? Well, perhaps you identify with the society and government of another country more. Perhaps you've become disaffected or offended, or perhaps disillusioned with your country and its society. Maybe you feel that the trajectory of your life and the life of your significant others will be better in a country outside of your own. Perhaps you'd like to start fresh somewhere else, another country that has more of a capacity to suit you better, philosophically or politically. Sometimes countries take people from other countries in on an asylum basis. One instance of that was his name eludes me at the present time. But there was a computer hacker who exposed quite a bit of NSA inner workings. Edward Snowden, that's his name. He exposed quite a bit of the inner workings of the National Security Agency. And after having exposed the espionage components and the components of the National Security Agency that he found to be objectionable, he went and found asylum in Russia. I don't know why he moved to another country, quite frankly. I think that he might have seen the elements of gang stalking when he exposed the NSA. And some of the espionage programs they ran that he found to be morally objectionable. I think he saw promise in a new country, the ability for a better life in a new country, and Russia offered him citizenship and asylum. But Russia offers a lot of U.S. personalities citizenship and asylum. I mean, I think Russia has offered honorary citizenship to Steven Seagal, the action movie star. Russia has offered citizenship to Roy Jones Jr., the former middleweight boxing champion. Russia's offered honorary citizenship to Bruce Willis, the movie actor. Russia's offered citizenship to Edward Snowden. It's offered citizenship to, if I'm not mistaken, it's offered honorary citizenship to Mike Tyson, the former heavyweight boxing champion of the world. I think it's offered honorary citizenship to Floyd Mayweather Jr., the former welterweight boxing champion of the world. So Russia offers citizenship, honorary citizenship, to a lot of people, based on various factors. I mean, it's almost like being knighted. Everyone's heard that term before, being knighted. Okay, that is considered a huge honor in the United Kingdom. All right, if your life's work has changed society for the better in such a way that is undeniable and far-reaching, then you could be knighted by the monarch of the United Kingdom. The monarch of the United Kingdom presently is His Highness King Charles III, who is the direct descendant of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. And if you impress the global community, if you make enough of an impression on the global community to become knighted, then you get the title Sir in front of your name. And becoming a knight has changed the lives of a lot of people. And if you're a female, the equivalent honor that could be bestowed upon you by the monarchy is called damehood. The males get knighthood, the females get damehood, and you get the dame title in front of your name. So there are honors that can be bestowed upon people. It's not exactly an invitation to defect. It's just simply the monarchy of the United Kingdom honoring your life's work, your personality, your character, and your contribution to humanity. Russia offers honorary citizenship. That's, in many respects, it's the Russian equivalent of knighting somebody. Okay, if your life's work has reached enough lives globally or inspired enough people globally, you can get honorary citizenship in Russia. But keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, there are 1,000,001 variables that goes into whether or not a person gets accepted into this country or that country. Just like there are 1,001 reasons that a person decides to move to another country. For me, defection is about maintaining a level of health. Okay. It's about putting yourself in a position to succeed, to contribute to a society that's going to appreciate you as much as you appreciate them. I mean, the United States of America always has, ladies and gentlemen, had its preferred citizenry as to who actually gets life, liberty, and happiness. It's not extended to everybody, even though the Constitution says it should be. But this is not me wishing harm on the U.S. federal government. It's not me wishing harm to its elected officials. It's not me wishing harm to the American people in any way. It's just me simply saying that this gang stalking campaign has made me a very, very disaffected man. It's made me a disillusioned man. It's made me a disgruntled man. And you know what? Truth be told, I'm not exactly asking the U.S. federal government for anything. I'm not asking the state of Florida for anything. I'm simply requesting that the madness come to an abrupt end. You know, it kind of reminds me of the story Abraham in the Old Testament. The Bible says that Abraham prospered in the land of his affliction, which means that the land that he was once oppressed in, he found a way to prosper in. That's an amazing story. And that's one of the reasons why they call him Abba, or Father Abraham. It wasn't just because he was the progenitor to the Israelite people. It's because he showed qualities that were dynamic and virtuous. And ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, if you ask me, what has your experience been up until 2016? My experience in the United States has been one of admiration. I've always admired the United States, ladies and gentlemen. I've always admired its institutions, its history, its structure, its fortitude in military campaigns, its freedoms, its founding fathers, its political system. I've always admired the United States. But there are certain forces at work that trample on the rights that I've been guaranteed under the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. Now, ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, defection is something that that a lot of people think about. I mean, there were draft dodgers, which, for me, draft dodging is not a terribly it's not a terribly scrupulous thing to do. I mean, draft dodging is it's a bad thing in my estimation. Okay, but there were draft dodgers in the 1960s that moved to another country simply so they wouldn't have to fight in that war. There were draft dodgers that moved to another country to get away from the Iraq War. But ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, I maintain an international presence on social media, and that's not to say that I hope any ill befalls America at the behest of another country. I read the news. I know what's going on in the Middle East. I know what's going on in Gaza and Palestine and Israel and the Strait of Hormuz and a lot of places. And I know that it's a very volatile part of the world, and it's very sensitive politically there. And quite frankly, I hope that situation smooths itself out with international intervention. But I am not a person that advocates for terroristic occurrences in any country. And I think that it's a very bad thing, and that the United States has bounced back beautifully from horrible circumstances, just as Japan has bounced back from horrible circumstances, just as Armenia has bounced back from horrible circumstances. Israel has bounced back from horrible circumstances. Palestine as well, Gaza. England has had some horrible things happen that it's bounced back from beautifully. So has France, Germany, and Italy. Every country in the world has had circumstances occur in it that it had to bounce back from and move on from. And the same is true with individual people. I mean, being put in a gang stalking campaign is almost a surefire way of making sure that a person does not obtain life, liberty, and happiness. So when you look at gang stalking, when you look at these things, there are very patriotic people in the United States that may not like people coming forward about this. But me personally, I think the opposite. I still have a lot of respect for people that love this country. I still have a lot of respect for people who revere this country. I have a lot of respect for people who go into law enforcement and military work and public service careers, like being a judge or a lawyer or perhaps a politician, because you are front and center and you are taking on an oath of service to your country as your career. And that is an admirable thing, and I think it's admirable around the world, regardless of what country you live in. But it's like this: despite the respect that I do have for Americans, for patriotic Americans, even for political dissidents like myself, people who have a dissident voice or a dissident inclination towards some of the things that go on in the United States, I respect them too, and I respect you all under your First Amendment rights and your rights to freedom of expression. But ladies and gentlemen, I think it's imperative for a person to be able to obtain life, liberty, and happiness, given the complexity of humans, given the complexity of your birth, your origins, and your trajectory through this world and your trajectory through the next world. It's a complex thing. And all humans can do is respect the next person. Let them live their life. You live your life, particularly according to federal, state, and local laws. So ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, if you identify as a targeted individual, you have a choice to make. I'm curious personally as to the number of targeted individuals who have already left the United States, but having left the United States quietly because they didn't know how to quantify what was happening to them. They didn't know they were targeted individuals. They just thought that it was time for them to pursue citizenship elsewhere because of the synchronized harassment and violence and disruption that they experience in their home country. I mean, there's just simply no way around it. If you are a citizen and you are a person that has become disaffected, you can either make the best of your situation or leave. Quite frankly, targeted campaigns make it difficult to make the best out of a situation. There's an old saying that says, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. You can't make lemonade when you are a targeted individual, and the reason you can't make lemonade as a targeted individual is because the lemonade juicer in your life has been destroyed. You're just plagued with lemons over and over and over and over again, and it's nearly impossible to do anything about it. And it doesn't matter what state you go into. You can go into any of the 50 states, including Hawaii or Alaska, and you will find that you are a targeted individual anywhere. And it's not something that you're imagining. Okay, to my targeted individuals listening to this, you are not at fault in feeling the way you do. You are not at fault in talking about what you're experiencing, nor are you at fault for dissenting. Okay, something like this is a very unfortunate misuse of governmental resources and taxpayer resources to disrupt the life of a U.S. citizen at the behest of his enemies. That is a horrible, horrible thing, and I don't blame any targeted individual for wanting to defect. I myself have found great pleasure in the thought of defecting to a new country, but it's difficult to know if I'd be accepted into any other country because there are countries that you don't know what countries in this world are in favor of political dissidents coming to their country or not. Because think about it, if you're a decision maker in that capacity to where you get to decide who comes to this country or not, bringing in a political dissident may or may not be something that's desirable to you, because if you were a dissident in your country, how do you know they're not going to be dissident in this new country? You see? So there's a lot of there's a lot of variables to factor into approving or declining a person's application for citizenship. And like I said, it's a very expensive process, and it's difficult to know if you'd be accepted or not. So, even if there are other countries, governments, or people that like what I do, your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, there's still no guarantee that I would be accepted as a citizen into another country. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's a situation where the trajectory of someone's life has to make sense. When you're a target individual and you're disrupted in everything you try to do, it doesn't make sense. And then when you figure out you're in a targeted campaign and you start speaking out about it, it's hard to know if you are simultaneously burning bridges with your government or not. Now, some people might say, well, what about family ties? What about this? What about that? I could promise you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a targeted individual, you probably don't have very close family relationships. Okay, me personally, I haven't talked to my maternal or paternal families in almost 10 years. That's not to say we don't love or care about one another. It just basically means that we are probably better at loving each other from a distance than we are up close and personal. So I think for any targeted individual, it's a situation where you're not so much concerned with offending family members by moving to another country. It's more about looking after yourself. Okay, and yeah, political dissidents are an interesting case. Okay, some political dissidents like living in the country of their affliction because the conflict is exciting to them. But me personally, it's hard for me to know. And my significant other, Lori, she's, in contrast to me, very patriotic. And she loves American heart and soul. And one day I asked her if she would ever want to move to another country, and she said no. But more recently, I've been racking her brain a little bit as to what countries she would move to if she had the chance and if it were preferable to her. And she's given me a short list of countries that she wouldn't mind living in, and I have my short list of countries I wouldn't mind living in, particularly because of this gang stalking campaign that I've been in for 30 years. So ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it's just simply a matter of what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not willing to tolerate. I mean, you got some people who were very patriotic at some point in their life, and then they experience something of an administrative nature that stops them from enjoying America. All right, some people experience legal conundrums that make them want to leave. Some people experience personal events that make them want to leave, like a divorce or something like that. Some people simply don't want to live in a country where X, Y, and Z is the president of the United States. Some people don't want to live in a country that has so many of one demographic or another demographic in it. I mean, you have some people of certain demographics that say, you know what, there's too many of this particular demographic in the U.S. I want to move to another country where there's less of this demographic or less of that demographic, so I won't have to see or interact with them as much. And that's across the racial spectrum. You have people of all different races who routinely leave the United States because they don't want to be around this demographic or that demographic. So they move to a country where there's practically none of this demographic or that demographic, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there are so many different reasons that a person defects to another country. I mean, it's impossible really to grasp the realities of why a person defects and why they don't. Me personally, I always, up until probably 2016, envisioned myself prospering academically and occupationally and socially right here in the United States where I was born. But as I started experiencing gang stalking more and more, and as I started learning more and more about it through research and experience, I just started thinking, well, I'll either fix the problem or move. And fixing the problem has proved difficult. Okay, I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, that I do consider my project to be a success because I've brought more to the I've brought more attention to the realities of gang stalking than anybody else in America, and I can promise you that. But at the same time, getting rid of it altogether has proved rather difficult. And as I've said in previous lectures, sometimes they retreat and then they come back. The stalkers retreat, then they come back. Then they retreat, then they come back. And every time they come back, they bring more problems, more hostilities, and more disruptions with them. You see? So, I mean, I would like to be one of those Americans that just loves America. Okay, I would like to be one of those Americans that waves a flag in their front porch. Okay, I'd love to be one of those Americans that gets excited every voting cycle and even more excited when I get to the ballot box and put in my vote for this official or that official, for this president or that president. I would love to be one of those Americans that values and is given a sense of purpose by the political process. But ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it's difficult. It's difficult when you have countless strangers that are assigned to a job. A job of disruption and malfeasance against you, a target, at the behest of some people who can't show their faces to you because they're too much of a coward. So, I mean, it's difficult, ladies and gentlemen. It's difficult. And as I've said, it's not surveillance. It's not monitoring. It's not national security. I know the age we live in, ladies and gentlemen. I don't mind being monitored. I don't mind being watched. I don't mind being listened to. I don't mind being observed as a part of a governmental mechanism. Just make sure the people you send to do it are not clownish buffoons that are intent on harassing me or getting me sick with some bacterial infection that they fling through the air. You know, you got some people that will listen to this and say, well, I hate to hear that, Mr. Smith. I think you should stay in America and make the best out of the situation. And then you got other people that'll listen to this and say, you should move to another country if you find the resources. You know, some people might ask you, Smith, if you had 8 to 10 figures right now in your bank account, would you move to another country? The answer I'd give them is, I don't know. I'd have to visit some and make my decision based on those visitations. You know, you got the United States of America. It's got a rich history. You know, it's got a governmental structure that people are proud of. It's got a strong military. It's got a free market capitalist economic system. You know, it's got a lot of things, but it's also got gang stalking here. And gang stalking disrupts all those good things I just talked about. It doesn't matter how wonderful a country this could be without gang stalking. It has gang stalking. Gang stalking is a part of the American DNA right now, and it threatens to disrupt the life and the career and the educational opportunities of any targeted individual that tries to do anything of note or anything worthwhile to sustain himself, to sustain herself. You see, it will be a matter of finding enough money, finding a new country, convincing my significant other to go with me, perhaps my 2 sons as well, if they so chose. There's no guarantee they'd want to go to a new country, but there's always the possibility. And then you go to this new country and you got to make a new life for yourself. All right, there's a lot to it. But there's also the possibility that you expose gang stalking on the world stage right here in the United States, and then you live well off the exposure. Okay, that's an option too. It's just a situation where you're talking to somebody who, as a kid, felt very proud of his country, felt very blessed to be an American. The same in my teenage years, the same in my 20s. Then when my 30s rolled around and I realized I was in a full-blown gang stalking campaign, I was like, you know what? I got to get out of here. Because if my country thinks this little of me, to where it would allow me to go through something like this, then what's the point of being in that country? All right, if my life in this country, if my existence in this country is not seen as an asset or of any value at all to federal, state, and local establishments in this country, then I have to defect. I have to leave. I have to do what's best for myself, what's best for my significant others. Ladies and gentlemen, and ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about faith. It's not about, well, have faith that Jesus will put a stop to your gang stalking campaign, or have faith that the prophets or the apostles or this deity or that deity or this God or that God or this holy book or that holy book has the keys or the tools or the resources that you need to get out of your gang stalking campaign. It isn't that simple, ladies and gentlemen. I, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, have faith in what I believe is effective or efficient. Okay, do I believe that humankind is an ancient creation? Yes, but that creator has taken somewhat of an hands-off approach to the affairs of mankind. But that's okay. That's his prerogative. My goal, ladies and gentlemen, is to live the best life I can under the precepts of the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the U.S. Constitution. If I'm being hindered from doing that by a bunch of stalkers who communicate with each other secretly, well, what kind of life is that? You see, ladies and gentlemen, what is the guarantee that there is not gang stalking in other countries? Who's to say? It's a complicated thing. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, I do think of defection. I do not like rigged games, and that's exactly what gang stalking is. It is a game that has been leveled against you, a game that has life-changing consequences. And this game is rigged. It presents itself to you as a fair game, but it's a rigged game. It's you as a U.S. citizen versus various components of the U.S. government that are manifested in your fellow citizens, who are likely your stalkers. So yes, I think of defection. But yes, I also think of staying here. If you say, well, Smith, do you want to stay or go? I don't know. It depends on how my gang stalking campaign goes over the next few years. I just have no answer for you. I weigh the pros and the cons, the goods and the bads, all right, of defection. And quite frankly, I think being a TI in the United States is dangerous, because danger is constantly being signaled to you. You can try and stay out of danger if you want to, but that's not going to change the fact that danger is going to find you in a gang stalking campaign, because the persons bringing the danger are signaled to you, and to you do they bring the danger. So it doesn't matter where you go. But you're sitting here telling me things like, well, when I say you're telling me things, I'm talking about through street theater. The federal establishment of this country are saying things like, "Oh, just suck it up, just toughen it up, pull up yourself by the bootstrap and keep moving. Onward Christian soldier," that kind of thing. But how do you tell a person onward Christian soldier when they're fighting a gang stalking campaign with millions of people in it? You see, it's a tough situation to put a person in, and yes, if a person feels like they're being routinely pestered and disrupted by covert governmental mechanisms involving their fellow U.S. citizens, they're going to want to defect. I want to defect, but it's hard to know what country will accept you and what country won't, what the process will be, what the costs involved will be. You see, I feel like over the past 40 years of my life, I've given my country enough chances to do right by me. I'm not asking for preferential treatment, but I'm also not asking to be treated like an undesirable. What I'm asking for is life, liberty, and happiness. And that's something that I'm going to have to get in this country or another country. Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen.